So, hey everyone, how are you? I know I took a little bit of time to get started, but it's Friday. Glad to be here. Glad to, we'll be back with you once again for what promises to be an interesting matchup. And in certain cases, in certain moments, and in certain situations, well, we be bragging about rivalries. Well, this one ends up being the most important one of all. So, when you start looking at the Clásico del Pacífico, what's up, Garab? How are you? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I will do my best. I know I am up to a big challenge and, of course, a big debt of gratitude to be able to offer you as best a commentary as possible. Again, remember, this is a one-man show. This is being producer, being director, being everything, and, of course, being the match commentator as well. As you start seeing the world feed, or I don't know if it's a world feed or not, but because some networks have the world feed out and out, some have their own cameras that they're able to show, and so it makes it much easier for them to control what to go to instead of what to be given, and you deal with what you have. Of course, every so often I'll come and give you a little tidbit in terms of what television is, and hopefully that ends up being something interesting in the coming games to go into the future. Again, as all of you know, make sure you make sure you do everything you can in order to kind of let the algorithm know, hey, by the way, this is going on. I'd be interested to see more of it. I'd be interested to do more. And maybe, just maybe, send it to your friends. And of course, that ends up multiplying. And that's the way this is going to end up working out in terms of everything. As you hear the crowd, as you hear everything going on, at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. It was supposed to be the venue for the World Cup final until, of course, that was switched. And it was finally decided that it was going to be at MetLife. Okay, big match will be coming up in the next few days as Argentina and Chile will be playing at MetLife in just about 3 or 4 days, well, a little bit more than that, maybe about 5 days' time. As Paolo Guerrero, he'll be coming off the bench today. And you know what? Let me start by making sure that I give you the starting lineup, starting out with Chile with Claudio Bravo in goal. Isla, Lichnowsky, Diaz, and Suazo, backline of 4 for Ricardo Gareca. Suazo, Pulgar, Núñez, and Dávila with Alexis Sanchez, Diego Valdez, the man from America, and of course, Edu Vargas. You see right there, Edu Vargas right in front of Alexis Sanchez. Claudio Bravo, who will be coming back for yet another Copa America. Man that, of course, seems to be aging in front of our eyes, but seems to not be aging fast enough because you think he's older. Man that, of course, plays at Betis or has had continuity at Betis. Claudio Bravo now at 41 years of age. As we wait to see what happens. Meanwhile, on the other end, you see Luis Advíncula. He will be coming on. And, of course, when it comes to these two sides, Advíncula will be leading his team on. It'll be Gales in goal, Araujo, Zambrano, Callens. Backline of 3 for Jorge Fossati. Callens, as I said, part of the backline. Advíncula on the right. They say on the left, but on the right. Peña, Quispe, Cartagena, and Andy Polo. Of course, many of you in the United States will be familiar with Andy Polo. Played over at the Portland Timbers. With Edison Flores and Gianluca Lapadula. 3-5-2 for Jorge Fossati on the evening. As you see the refereeing crew coming out. And, of course, Wilson Sampaio will be part of that refereeing crew. As you know exactly what is going to happen in this match. It'll be furious, it'll be intense, and of course, it'll be typical of what this Clásico del Pacífico usually ends up being. So, again, if you're not familiar with South American football, and it's shocking because lately it seems like anyone that's been doing sports, all of a sudden they do a soccer game, all of a sudden they're an expert. At least in the US, you start seeing that a lot. That you see a lot of baseball analysts, football analysts, all of a sudden say, oh, I want to do some soccer. And all of a sudden they're doing soccer. So that's another story for another time. So with all that being said, as you see right there, Ricardo Gareca and Jorge Fossati, both very familiar with one another, as Peru with their national anthem. So Peru coming into this basically in last place in Copa in World Cup qualifiers. Chile kind of trying to be above water. What ends up being interesting about this is the last time that these two teams met, it ended up being in World Cup qualifying play. Chile ends up winning 2-0. And it ends up being an encounter of two sides that kind of need the points, that kind of not only need the points to advance and the bragging rights and find themselves in a position where the next round can end up being, well, you do have the luxury of getting 1 point and you still end up being in relatively good shape. But it ends up being the actual measuring stick of where you really are. When it comes to Chile, and you see a packed, of course, Peru, one of those national teams that end up having a good following, that have a very intense fan base, especially stateside. Maybe you could say they're that sixth national team in terms of following. I've always said that there's 6 or 7 national teams that have a tremendous following when it comes to the fan bases here, and maybe Peru ends up being number 6 or 7 right behind the U.S., but it ends up being one of those instances where lots can be talked about when it comes to that. You hear that as you hear the fans, of course. As the Chilean fans, of course, in full force as well. I mean, not as obviously as much as you would say, let's say, when a Peru or a Colombia or Argentina, or well, even let's go to the extreme of Mexico. That ends up being the most important aspect of it all. As we're about to finish the pre-match protocol, of course, the anthem's going on a little bit more extensively. Copa America, usually you see those kind of get extended a little bit more. Coming in, of course, Claudio Bravo had been injured. Talk about some of the instances that end up being of note. And, well, there was a lot of talk as to who would end up being the starting goalkeeper. In that case, there's no doubt it would be Gabriel Arias. Many were even saying, should Arias end up being the starting goalkeeper for Chile, the man that plays over at in Argentina over at Racing Club? As we await for everything to start going down here, as you see the lineups, of course, as I already gave them to you. Of course, you see that back line of 5, or back line of 3, if you will. And of course, they put Advíncula usually on the left. He plays on the right. We'll see, although there are instances rarely that he does end up going in that sector. But you see with Advíncula on the left, no, that's not where usually he's way too right-footed to be in that position. It seems weird to see him there. Polo, maybe not as left-footed, or maybe a little less right-footed. He would end up being more in that sector, but we'll see how things play out. At times, it could be for Advíncula to start over in that sector. And obviously, because of a rivalry, because of trying to show some fraternity, as football ends up kind of being, as many say, the least important of the most important. As people say, look, biggest rivalry, no doubt about it, not only in South America, but in basically the world, is Argentina, Brazil. There's no doubt about it. And when it comes to the region, hey, what's up, Joe? How are you? Pleasure. Thank you very much. When it comes, of course, you can also talk about Argentina, Uruguay historically, but this one takes the cake in terms of the intensity and of the background behind it. The from the ballistic end, I'm talking about, from the more historical and political end, and well, even recently that they've had a couple of little skirmishes here and there. Of course, things end up being a little bit more mellow now. So, ready to go here from AT&T Stadium. as we're about moments from getting the kickoff underway. We'll wait and see what ends up happening. As you see, Wilton Pereira Sampaio, the referee, he'll be the one that will be in charge of imparting justice, as will be just moments. I mean, I know I say it, but sometimes it takes a little longer because, of course, the teams want to talk it up a little bit more, say things. And, of course, Chile with their lineup, already mentioned it already with Claudio Bravo. Today will be his 149th cap with La Roja. On the other end, because Mauricio Isla's a right back, so Isla and Suazo ends up switching. Diego Valdez will play more in the middle. Eric Purgara wide, and Marcelino Núñez, the man from Norwich, will be playing more. Of course, Edu Vargas and Victor Dávila will be the two up top. As, of course, Ricardo Gareca has shown some interesting things, has shown some different variations to what Chile have been able to do in the past, but also there's newer protagonists coming into the fray that could make things quite dynamic or more dynamic, and we've seen those moments. I'm not saying that Chile are now world beaters again and let's consider them contenders to win the Copa America once more. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they are showing interesting things and they are on the rise once again. So for me, that ends up being a big positive when it comes to what this team is looking to do. That to me is the most important thing, as we're just moments away. Of course, lots of things to talk about, lots of things to delve into. Edison Flores, as of course he is kind of winding down his career, but also it shows you some of the names that haven't, that generational change really hasn't come full circle. Although Edison Flores, you would say, oh my God, long in the tooth. Well, Edison Flores is 30 years of age, as he's the one that knocks the ball into the back and ends up being deflected. And we're underway here in Arlington, Texas, as Copa America Day 2 is underway. Chile, dressed as Chile, Peru, in their traditional kit with the white uniform with the red sash, immediately starting pushing forward at Advíncula down the left-hand side. Interesting to see this tactical disposition. So we'll see how things play out, as Advíncula is the one that'll be throwing that ball inside. Looking to see who to launch it to. Nobody moving around. The only one is Alexander Calen, somewhat, a little bit, just a tad bit. But it ends up being interesting to see what the Alianza Lima man, former NYCFC man, is capable of doing down that side alongside Advíncula. I said rarely because at times when he was over at Rayo Vallecano, Advíncula would play at left back, but more often than not, he was over on the right. Advíncula launching it back inside, cleared away by the defense, as it'll end up being another throw-in. We're just moments away from getting past the first minute, and indeed we do. As you see right there, Gianluca Lapadula. Interesting story there for the man that was last season over at Cagliari, Advíncula. Now, what ends up happening with Advíncula playing in that sector, and it's not me saying it, it's just basically how he stands as a right-footed player. Well, he ends up being more of an inverted wingback, if you will. So it'll be Advíncula one more time. Things starting out pretty well so far in these first 90 seconds of play. All the way over into the corner. Finally, what ends up happening with Peru is that they just start moving that ball around. Paulo Quispe ends up losing it. Advíncula down the left-hand side, trying to cross it. Remember, it was an interesting interview with Advíncula because it was last year in the match against Deportivo Pereira in Libertadores. He ends up scoring a goal that basically keeps them alive, as you see him offside. And he basically says, I didn't know I had a left foot. Of course, he scores with a left foot there. He ends up scoring a series of shots that end up helping Boca en route to the final of the Libertadores. He scores in the final of Libertadores. And, he ends up saying, I didn't know I had that in me. So that's why you end up seeing kind of weird that Advíncula will be playing over on the left-hand side, still trying to see and make inroads, crossing the middle of the pitch, finally losing the ball. Alexis Sanchez ends up going and favoring Chile after the foul was called against the man from Inter Milan, I should say. Now controlling inside. Some interesting names on the respective benches, and that'll be something to be talking about throughout this encounter. As Chile and Peru, again, kind of trying to dominate. Lapadula out there trying to pressure a little bit more, but again, that ball going back out wide. trying to send it as deep as possible was Igor Lichnowsky, the man from Copa America. Edison Flores dropping back Lapadula, not able to connect. Finally, Mauricio Isla, man from Independiente, former Juventus man, former Flamengo man, not being able to send that ball and deliver it quickly. Davila gets it, but there was a foul call prior to that by Wilson Pereira Sampaio. As Lapadula going to ground. Keep in mind, for a good portion of the last World Cup qualifiers, Lapadula was playing with a face guard after he broke his nose and broke it pretty bad. Was there a yellow card? Nope. At least as of right now, I haven't seen one. It was Marcelino Nunez on the foul. Remember how fraternal they were early on? Well, that ends up not being the case. Is trying to play it out as cleanly as possible, Peru. And another foul that's called, and it's been kind of sloppy so far from the get-go. As you see, at least the initial initiative right now is, or at least from what one's seeing, is to try and pressure the midfield. Try and see which one engages a bit better, which one ends up really covering a bit more space and a bit more territory, and also ends up implementing more conditions in terms of their offensive disposition. Here's Alexis Sanchez. That ball ends up being given right back as it was Quispe right there to be able to take it forward. And again, you see a very interesting proposition coming from Chile, but of course haven't been able to elaborate as much as Peru have, because at least Peru have gone to 3/4 inside that final third. Lichnowsky over to Claudio Bravo. Holding it, being serene about it, trying to come out of the back. Finally, the Betis goalkeeper sending it as deep as possible, going over in the direction of Alexis Sanchez, but a little bit too far for Alexis to get there. The wheels aren't as sleekly oiled as they were. And of course, you see the man behind Ricardo Gareca. I'm not talking about the assistant. I'm talking about the guy right behind him. Of course, I'm talking about Ben Brereton Diaz. Will be a very interesting option going into the second half, if you ask me. Ball recovered in the middle by Eric Pulgar. Trying to play it out with Gabriel Suazo. And Peru again. As much as you want to talk about Peru and the lack of offensive firepower they've had throughout a while, well, if there's something that they've been able to have and somewhat maintain, is a sense or a semblance of defensive structure. So that's what ends up making things a little bit more interesting when it comes to how Chile were going to look to break things down in the initial stages. A very interesting crowd, a little bit fuller than I expected, to be quite honest with you, here at AT&T Stadium. Ball sent in over to Victor Davila. He ends up losing it, and it finally has to take it away. It was Miguel Araujo who ends up winning that ball. Peru trying to play it out, but again, Chile pressuring. Again, you talk about the pressure that Chile are looking to exert upon them. Well, is exactly that. It'll be a throw-in courtesy of Gabriel Suazo. Suazo, of course, playing over at Toulouse in France. Man, that's earning his 26th cap for La Roja as of right now. Opening things up, trying to work a little bit more with Isla. Of course, a lot of talk over the past couple of days. Isla winning that ball and trying to slam it as far forward as possible, but over the head of Edison Flores. Another foul. If I were a betting man, ladies and gentlemen, if I were a betting man, if I were someone like that, I'm not, because I'm not good at it. Honestly, I suck at it, so I'm not going to say too much. I would end up betting the over on the fouls on this one, okay? Now, if you do end up indeed betting and all of a sudden you end up winning something, make sure you remember me, okay? I do accept donations. I do accept bribes. Again, that ball back inside. Quispe having to play that ball in the middle, looking for Wilder Cartagena. Zambrano, former Boca man, having to play it back out wide over to Miguel Araujo, who in turn sends it deep, but really not a lot of room to do much with it. Is just very little operating room for La Bicolor to do anything in the first 7-8 minutes of this match. Lots of talk that has gone on so far. Of course, in the Chile camp, there was a lot. I mean, there's been a lot of jawing back and forth over the past couple of days. There was a show in Chile that was previewing the match and saying basically, of course, and I can speak this way, and I tend to not to in normal commentary, but there was a former Chilean goalkeeper, Nico Peric, who was his partner on that show in Chile, ends up going and saying, well, this shouldn't be a problem for us, for us, meaning Chile, against Peru, because Peru usually shit the bed when they see us. So that ends up being one of the interesting aspects of this encounter going into this match, how all of a sudden you hear all the chatter and all the smack talk and everything else that does incur when it comes to a rivalry and the banter that ends up kind of towing that line, if you will. Free kick coming up here for Peru. It'll be a good throw-in opportunity, it'll be a good ball to serve in instead of throwing in. Obviously, kind of difficult to do so from that sector at all. And of course, the perfectionism of what is a Brazilian referee saying, well, no. A couple of inches here, a couple of inches there, ball delivered in, and it'll just sail right out. No one, and ends up being a very difficult proposition for anyone, I don't care who you are, to send a ball from that angle, and much less for someone like Sergio Peña. Of course, the man from Malmo, who today earns his 38th cap, he ends up being a vital part of that midfield for Jorge Fossati, coming out of the back again with Eric Pulgar. Pulgar is the one that's going to drop back in the event that Isla as well as Suazo end up pushing forward. He drops back in between the two defenders, between Paulo Diaz and Igor Lichnowsky. Deep ball again, right there to Pedro Galese. Advíncula. He crosses the middle of the pitch, storms forward, helping Peru at least regain position. Advíncula still down the left-hand side, being chased down by three. Easy tap out there by Edu Vargas has ended up going out of bounds. It'll still be Peru ball as we already crossed the 10-minute mark in this first half. Again, glad for everyone to be coming on. I'm very happy to be on board with all of you as Advíncula trying to dump it into space to give some continuity. But again, it's a very complicated one, although it's handled very well by Piero Quispe. Quispe, of course, one of the few young players. Of course, he plays over at Pumas in Mexico, but slowly has been trying to make himself part of that new generation of Peruvian football that has taken a long time to really develop. A ball that's sent in, Claudio Bravo clinging on to it. Plays it quickly over to Alexis Sanchez. Sanchez, where's he going to go? He has three surrounding him. It was impossible for him to even make a play. Now play continuing with Peru. Well, at least it did for a second. An errant pass given in the middle, and that's where it gives Peru the opportunity, or at least one would have thought so, as Davila basically gift-wrapped the pass, and Peru says, no, we don't want a gift right now. We'll give it right back to you. A lot of mistakes so far, and you see a bit of the anxiety of that debut match really showing itself up to now. Isla. Where's player that's been direly missed by Independiente over the past couple of matches. Keep in mind, there's leagues that are still playing. Well, Argentina's not. Brazil was just playing until yesterday. And it's funny, another league that, well, MLS is also playing. It'll play for a couple more weeks, and then now when the group stage of the Copa America ends, well, MLS will stop play. Now a league that will resume shortly thereafter is Liga MX. Liga MX begins again on the weekend of July 6th. So make that make sense. But again, the calendar, and I completely understand, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, as Peru will get the ball back. Again, what I like about this format, I can be a little bit freer. I can, if play kind of doesn't really go and have a flow, well, I can go in off on a tangent, not too far, but I can stray a bit and explain things with a bit more caution, with a bit more clarity, so there is an understanding of how things are. Now, when play is going on, then that ends up being the complete opposite. Piero Quispe winning that ball back inside, and it's a lot of problems there for La Padula and company to be able to do anything. Wilder Cartagena was finally the player that had to do something. Advíncula wants to switch it over to the opposite end, too far for Andy Polo. Polo battling for it. And finally, it's Diego Valdez who's playing much wider than one would think. Ooh, tough crack at it. Is another foul being called. It'll favor Chile as they'll get the ball back. Edu Vargas getting up, and he looks okay. Let's see. Let's see, folks. Let's see, ladies and gentlemen. We're already 13, 14 minutes in. How many fouls do you think? How many fouls? Again, please make sure that you're liking. Please make sure that you, well, once you come in, you subscribe. Make sure. So, of course, it gives me a reason, or just make sure that it gives YouTube a reason to start promoting me your way. Ball sent in. Davila being able to hurdle past two defenders. Davila still scrambling around trying to find an open man down that left side. Alexis Sanchez turns back inside. Good open vision by Alexis Sanchez. I'm not sure why that ball wasn't released over to Isla a little sooner, but, well, that's another story because it should have been, it could have been, and it wasn't by Eric Pulgar, but he still ends up getting fouled. It'll go right back to La Roja. And again, if you know anybody that wants, I mean, it's an alternative. I'm not saying it's the best or it's the worst. I'm just giving you an option. And I hope that it's up to you, that it's good to you for your liking. It's good for you in terms of what one brings. Claudio Bravo playing it back out. As back out wide, it goes over to Suazo. Alexis Sanchez, Suazo back inside, having to dribble it back through. And Chile not finding a lot of inroads down that left side. So what do? They have to start all over again. Pablo Diaz is looking and seeing where he could go next time just to have a better reference. And meanwhile, Isla turns it back around. Good work by Diego Valdez. Starts a good opportunity there for Alexis Sanchez. But again, very steadfast, very sturdy in the middle for Peru. As again, Chile winning it over. Now, Peru very good in terms of stopping play, in terms of developing it on their own end. That's another story. Diego Valdez opening things up down the left-hand side. Davila giving a reference down the near side as well. The ball sent to Alexis. Go! Oh, no, Alexis Sanchez. Alexis Sanchez had the best opportunity, bar none. He came right in, but good work that was being done on the far side. Diego Valdez, Victor Davila connecting very well. A square ball. And my biggest question was, what was the Peru defense doing pushing up? Because Zambrano was looking, Callens was looking, and what was going on there? Sergio Peña pushes up and Alexis Sanchez goes right past him, and all of a sudden when the ball comes in, Sanchez didn't believe that ball was coming, and he just didn't know how to react, and well, what ended up happening happened. Unbelievable how we're not 1-0 right now. But so far, it's been mostly Chile. That is crazy to say. Alexis Sanchez in his 164th cap missed an opportunity to get closer and closer to make even more history. Marcelino Núñez. Marcelino. Where's Sanchez trying to add on to his all-time leading goal scoring with La Roja and trying to play it out as quickly as possible. Did Peru, couldn't do so as Edison Flores. Almost impossible for him to do anything. As soon as he turned around, he had a man on top of him. So far, it's been interesting after 17 minutes. Peru, how they've been able to go back and forth, and of course, countering and trying to do something very important on the other end, Peru, but Chile being able also to neutralize. So it's one of those encounters where we're getting closer and closer to seeing what an actual Clásico ends up being. Marcelino Núñez, as he recovers that ball, trying to play it as quickly as possible. Here it goes over to Turbomanes. Edu Vargas couldn't get there. Of course, the pressure coming on Callens. He had no other remedy than just not knock it out as Alexis Sanchez on the ground again. Alexis took a pretty good hit, and there will be a yellow card as Pablo Diaz. And Pablo Diaz giving, of course, a bit of a reprimand to the referee saying, hey, by the way, the yellow card should have come out a little sooner. Did he? No. But there is a yellow card that's been issued. You can see right there on Carlos Zambrano. That ball already went out of bounds. So that ball already went out, I should say, not out of bounds. It didn't go out of bounds. But then Zambrano was nowhere close and ends up, of course, being the first player booked in this encounter. So Zambrano, the first player booked in this encounter. It was always interesting to see what Zambrano, especially when he was playing at Eintracht Frankfurt and was playing at Boca, how many would kind of say, well, with Zambrano, he walks onto the pitch and he's an automatic yellow card. Trying to keep it in bounds, but makes it very difficult for himself as that ball goes and just rolls out of bounds. Chile kind of losing a little bit of dynamic at 19. Further back it goes to Pedro Galese as the Orlando City goalkeeper just smashed it all the way forward, 3/4 of the way. Suazo tracking back, finding Claudio Bravo. And of course, the Chilean goalkeeper doing basically something similar, but ends up going out of bounds. It ends up being a throw-in for Peru, basically in the middle of the pitch. Another deep ball, trying to take full advantage. Peru trying to flick it inside, and the ball it's sent in the direction of La Padula. Impossible for him to even get there, as it was wide and behind him. Davila, and he too, again, the game getting extremely sloppy at this stage. Not sure which matches I will do this weekend, so if you do have any suggestions, I will not do the U.S. No. People can say, oh, no. It's not because I don't want to. At that time, I do have a personal engagement, so I really wouldn't be able to do it. I can't even watch the game for that matter. Alexis Sanchez winning on the rebound on Davila. And Edu Vargas attacking alongside the former Barcelona and Arsenal man. Alexis Sanchez, again, finding himself in a bit of a predicament. But, of course, there's a foul prior to that. It'll go against Edison Flores as he ends up committing that infraction basically in the middle of the pitch on Eric Pulgar. No, I didn't say I didn't want to do the U.S. I can't do the U.S. because, well, my wife would kill me if I did. So whatever matches you want me to do, you tell me. I'll kind of work it out. Again, everyone that's tuning in, thank you so much. Out of the back again, Chile. Out of the back, well, basically where they're positioned in terms of reference. Suazo trying to find Pulgar. It goes right past him. It goes over in the direction of Edu Vargas, looking for Davila. Davila getting to the ball first, being able to poke it away just in the nick of time. Chile trying to elaborate play down that far side with Diego Valdez. Couldn't do so. Finally winning it in, well, where's the transition? And finally there was an offside, or at least the intention is to keep going. The assistant kind of nonchalant on the other end because all eyes were on the assistant referee. And he's kind of like twiddling his thumbs, going backward, and the play continued on the other end, and no one really understanding how things proceeded the way they did. You're going to see exactly what I mean when you see the replay. As Eric Pulgar coming in really hard on La Padula. And Pulgar also going into the referee's book. So we already have two, in a span of 21 minutes, we already have 2 yellow cards. La Padula complaining. Should I brag about La Padula? I don't know. Think Victor Saferson. I wish he were listening. He could do all the bragging for me. I wish at one point I could have enough money to give that man enough money, because he deserves a great deal of credit for a lot of things that have happened to me. I wish if he ever hears this, well, that'd be great. Again, Peru. Callens alongside that Vincula. That ball goes astray. It'll continue being bicolor ball. I'll tell you the story later on. How about that? Let me know if you want to hear it or not. Ball being switched to the opposite end. Polo. Racing towards the middle is Peña. Peña being able to receive it inside. Where's Peru going to start advancing? It's interesting because Cartagena is free in the middle. Nobody ends up finding him, but Of course, he ends up finding all sorts of space. Alexis Sanchez decides to switch it to the other end, looking over, and the run that was made by Valdez, well, not much going on there as the America man being able to finally deflect that ball out of bounds. It ends up being a throw-in coming up for Peru. So it's never really a term of elaboration, guys. It's more of a battle of attrition so far, where these two teams have really had very little in terms of elaboration. Of course, the best that we've seen so far happened to be that goal that was missed by Alexis Sanchez, and let's stop counting. All the way back it goes to Claudio Bravo. Bravo. Dropping back again, Chile, of course, trying to reorganize themselves out of the back. Remember what I was saying early on about Chile showing some good things under Gareca? Well, this is what I'm talking about. Their ball movement has improved significantly. It's Davila trying to battle for it. Alexis Sanchez doing enough. Davila in the middle. Davila coming in. Vargas inside. Who's going to send that ball back in? Davila! Davila had scored 2 against Paraguay in their last prep match. And this time again, he finds it. But of course, this time around, it wasn't the proper one. And Wilton Sampaio, if you watch the Brasileirao, the reactions from the Chilean players are basically the reactions of the Brazilian players when they have to deal with Sampaio. This guy's, one of the assistants is looking at the stands. I don't know. Was that not a foul on Alexis Sanchez or on Alexis Sanchez? I don't know. You tell me. As we get already way past the first, to me, that's a foul. Jorge Fossati saying, watch out. Yeah, not saying no, it wasn't. He's saying, watch out. So another chance or another bullet dodged by Peru. Can they dodge another one? Because immediately after the goal kick, Peru having to go and chase it again as Alexis Sanchez down the near side. It'll continue being Chile ball. Foul for sure. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Again, back inside. Is there another foul? No. What happened here? Wasn't that a penalty? And look at Isla. He's saying, look at where the mark is, because there is a divot on the ground. Oh, I don't know if you got if any of you follow me on social media. There's times that I put Brazilian VAR right there. He gets, and you know what? He has a case. Davila right there, because you look at where his left foot ends up planting. It's there. Of course, the step after that, the contact was now no longer there. Yet that's when he ends up. Good call by the referee. It'll be a cross. It'll be an important service coming in. So far, I can't say that the pitch here at Arlington is as bad as in Atlanta. Davila. Also Valdez. If Valdez hits it, it's definitely going to be a cross. But with Davila, it could end up being one where it puts Gales in a tough situation. Paulo Diaz could be the man if he's inside of the area. Looking Davila, trying to keep it, well, I don't think low would have been the best option, but Peru being able to come out unscathed yet again. So, again, scoreless after 28 minutes. Alexis Sanchez will continue giving Chile possession. It'll be Mauricio Isla. Again, it's been for those of you that are watching that happen to be familiar with what's going on. Oh, yeah, Mary, you have to have your video enlarged. Do you really want to see me? I mean, I could do it. I have no problem, but I'm not sure if that's what if that's what you really want. I mean, I don't know if some fans want to see me that close. I mean, I have a face for radio, to be quite honest. I'll adjust it for you if that's what you want to see. I don't have a problem with that. There you go. How about that? How's that? I mean, it's not the most ideal of situations, but fine, you know. I mean, what sucks about this, my Ray, is to have, what I can tell you is that, it's a wonderful thing to do, but also it's a wonderful thing. And of course, I can do this. I can do all of this while on the fly. So it ends up being very interesting to see, very interesting to do. Again, another ball that goes over as another miss, and Alexis Sanchez this time missing it. Chile right now dominating proceedings for the last 10 minutes or so. Is that better? Is that better, Grub? I hope it is. But I can do a lot of things. I can go in different directions. I can change the style a little bit more. But obviously what I wish I could do more is show you something, which I can't. I can't show you Ricardo Gareca's face. I can't show you Jorge Fossati's face. I can't show you certain things that I wish I could. I mean, I can't even show you a still image. I can't. I'd love to be able to, but I can do it with a lot of other things. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And I appreciate that you like my face too. Isla, again, down that right side, continuing to press forward. And tell the guys over in Asia and in India and in Middle East that I know many of them are looking for a place to at least hear commentary. As now a break. Here's La Padula right down the middle, waiting to see the accompaniment. Who comes? It's Edison Flores, looking to see if he can return that ball back inside, but he ends up losing that joust. Good opportunity that's missed. There's Marcelino Nunez clearing it out any which way possible. Starting the break again with Isla. Isla having to cut back inside. That first touch a little bit too far. And it's easily won in the middle. And it's easily controlled in the middle, as Peru being able to kind of fend off anything that Chile's been able to throw their way up to now. Battling inside with Davila. It was interesting to see it because just now you see him and Callens end up getting tangled up. Peru now down the right-hand side. Opening himself up a little bit as Edison Flores trying to cut right through as Lichnowsky releases La Padula, but as soon as La Padula did, that ball ends up going backward, kind of negating every effort that he was capable of doing up to now. Already 31 minutes have gone by, still scoreless. Not a lot of goals in this Copa America right now, although the sample size is extremely microscopic. Quispe, nope, it'll go back. So after 30 plus minutes, 31 minutes to be more precise, well, there's been a lot of things to kind of analyze. Quispe right there offside. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah, he was paid off. Yeah, sure. Although, where things end up being interesting is in this sector. I was about to say it is a ball sent in. Here's a great chance. Gales picking it off as Edu Vargas causing trouble in the defense. Whenever the ball comes in, as there's going to be a substitution for Peru. Peru, man coming on for Peru right now. Just saw it right now. Marcos Lopez about to come on. Now starting the break, La Padula. La Padula has to cut back inside. La Padula with a shot that ends up being blocked. So Marcos Lopez about to come on. I'm thinking that the tactical disposition for Jorge Fossati is not to his liking. We'll end up seeing how things end up playing out. Having turned back around at Vincula, using his body to just shield that ball and protecting it, finally losing it. And again, that's been the biggest problem so far for Peru. Again, Chile being able to recover it inside. Alexis Sanchez wanted it, but there's a foul that's going to be called. And Sampaio being very, very effusive in his call. So, okay, so Marcos Lopez comes on. Lopez plays over at Feyenoord. Now, does that mean that Fossati's going to go to a back line of 4? Or is there a player that's injured? Keep in mind that Advíncula down right now. Advíncula, the 21st, about 2.5 weeks ago, Advíncula was missed a couple of games with Boca due to you see Marcos Lopez coming on, and of course it'll be for Advíncula. So that's bad news for Boca. That is a big blow for Peru. Luis Advíncula coming off. So you see the substitution is Luis Advíncula coming off as he'll be replaced by Marcos Lopez. 35th cap for him. That's a big blow for Peru. I mean, I don't think I needed to tell you that. So things end up being very disconcerting. And at a certain point, we end up starting to analyze, okay, well, what's Boca going to do? What are you talking about from a club perspective? Davila inside, Valdez waiting for it, picking it off, happened to be Edu Vargas. Pushing forward was Suazo. Suazo, again, not being able to handle it properly, having to play it back into the middle. As Peru being able to fend off yet another attack. We'll see what the report ends up being on Luis Advíncula in just moments. But again, remember what I said a couple of weeks ago? He was already suffering from a bit of a knock. He had muscular fatigue, and he missed a couple of matches due to that. Reason why Marcelo Sarachi ends up playing as a right back at Boca. And of course, Advíncula comes back and ends up going and playing with the national team shortly thereafter. So, a big problem for Jorge Fossati in that sector of the pitch. Isla, trying to be a little bit more conservative in terms of maintaining possession, but now the Chilean players are up and running on the bench. But that's more trying to get ready and trying to stay warm just in case they're needed in the second half. Good ball that's sent in. Pressing forward again with Marcelino Núñez. Núñez having to turn back around. Núñez cautiously being able to reset. Again, trying to move it back into the middle, trying to see where space can be accumulated and acquired. Pushing forward again is Igor Lichnowsky. Racing forward was Islas. He's basically playing as a wing right now. Having to drop it back was Davilas. Giving the ball some circulation, Lichnowsky. Again, now with Marcos Lopez, maybe you don't have as much danger going forward, or you don't have as much leadership, obviously, compared to Advíncula, but you end up having more presence as he's able to finally secure that ball. Sampaio's the one that's dashing down the pitch, pushing forward, or at least trying to do a little bit more was Lapadula, but kind of impossible for him to do anything. And you see the frustration on Advíncula as he's been, like I said, injured on and off over the past couple of weeks, over the past couple of months, I should say, as well. Ball sent into Valdez. What is the main reason pitches are being late? Well, this one, no. This one's been around for a while now. Well, that was one of the complaints for Scaloni. Keep in mind, Scaloni, one of the things he said was we knew where we were going to play 7 months ago. It's not like the Dallas Cowboys were playing here in December and January. Okay? And of course, they just showed Alexis Sanchez missing the only good opportunity of the match. He just ends up hitting it really wrong. I don't know. I don't have a straight answer for you. That is a CONMEBOL issue. Many are saying, oh, because AFA has nothing to do with it. FIFA has nothing to do with it. That's a CONMEBOL issue. Keep in mind, the tournament is being organized by CONMEBOL. And keep in mind, the president of CONMEBOL was in Atlanta last night. The president of FIFA was there last night. The president of CONCACAF was there last night. Of course, the president of CONCACAF doesn't give a shit. All he cares about is the money. Montagnani is just, okay, guys, you can use our stadium, no problem. We're going to get bank anyway. That's all he cares about. With Alejandro Dominguez, I don't know. I wish I had a straight answer for you, Garab. I wish I did. But that's all I can come up with. Davila. Valdez, again to Alexis Sanchez, circulating in very restricted space, but again being able to come out unscathed. Back to Isla. Isla, directing traffic. Ball that's sent in with a bit more precision. It's a great opportunity to start seeing Chile being able to handle things with a much more poise, with much more charisma, and of course with the usual flair that we're more accustomed to. An errant pass that ends up going out of bounds. As we get into the final 5 minutes of this first half. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Make sure you like, make sure that you start subscribing, make sure you do everything possible to kind of spread the word a little bit. Like I said, these types of matches I want to do as much as I can, opening things up a little bit more with the channel. I talked about doing it a bit more. So any little grain of salt that you can offer ends up being, you can't imagine, ends up being a huge contribution on this end as well. Because it does end up kind of not giving me interest. I'm interested in doing it. It ends up being much more important in terms of being able to distribute things a little bit more. Ball that goes over everyone's head. Lichnowsky safely being able to recruit that ball, send it into the middle. Isla being able to break out, and quickly Chile with a bit more impetus going forward, if you want to put it that way. Davila, though, losing it. But it's very, well, the only thing I can finally say with what you asked, Garab, is basically there is no reason. It's just lack of organization when it comes to some organizer in terms of really wanting to do things right and caring about the players and their well-being. Although you haven't heard much from Canada, though, have you? Canada, they're just happy to be there, I guess. I don't know. Having to play that ball inside. Quispe laying it off, opening it now with Alexander Callens. Callens does have the recently entered Marcos Lopez down the left. He'll have to go back internally. Quispe. Edison Flores circulating around down the left-hand side, or to the left of La Padula. Very little that he's been able to do. Like I said, let us know what you think, ladies and gentlemen, or let me know what you think. I hate talking in third person. Please make sure you leave a like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you spread the word, man, because I really would like to see this expand and go into different things. And as a handball is being asked for, nope, the referee says keep playing. Isla clearing that ball out, trying to turn back around with Edu Vargas. It's Zambrano who ends up throwing his body at Vargas. And Sampaio saying, no, that was a foul. Again, Brazilian referees. Again, look, I'll just leave it here, okay? I'm not even going to say referees from, no, because bad reffing is endemic. Brazilian referees, like Argentine referees, like Spanish referees, they're all bad. No handball, and of course, it went right off the chest, as you saw in the replay. When they see the replay, they're going to know that they're wrong. It will be a free kick, though. A great opportunity coming up here for Peru to kind of end the first half in a positive manner. It'll be Sergio Peña delivering it inside. The ball comes in, and Claudio Bravo being able to stick to that ball. Not a very powerful header, but still, I can't say it's the best. I have to say it's the only for Peru. Like Sanchez on the other end, it's the only one that they've been able to have. Another ball that's sent in. Are any of you geeks with numbers? Let me know. Okay? I'll throw some interesting numbers at you that way. Of course, the last time that these two teams did face off, remember what I was saying at the beginning of the broadcast about how Chile have felt confident, sometimes maybe a little too confident. Well, they played back in October in Santiago. Diego Valdés and Marcelino Núñez ended up scoring for Chile in a 2-0 victory. That was the last time that these two teams have faced off. And for Peru, it's been, I don't know if it's been a long time coming in terms of matches, but in terms of time period, it might have been because they haven't beat them in 3 years, although they've only played them once since that 2021. Another ball being sent in behind the intended target, cleared away. Miguel Araujo trying to keep it in was Antipolo, but impossible for him to do so. It ended up being a throw-in on the other end as we get to the final minute of play. There should be about 2 minutes of stoppage time, maybe 3 added on, because we've had a couple of players on the ground, number one. There was a substitution, number two. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind is Diego Valdés. I'm not sure what happened to him, but he's being tended to over there. As you see the header, well, kind of not a header necessarily. It was more like the ball ends up finding a head. And that's the difference, as Miguel Araujo can't believe what he missed. There was more direction on the ball, more pace to the ball. Maybe it would have been a different story, but so far, is Diego Valdés still on the ground? Remember what I said about 2 minutes? I take that back. It'll probably end up being now more about 3. Keep in mind the weather in Texas has been absolutely brutal. In Texas, going west, for those of you that haven't been aware about what's going on, I mean, there have been record temperatures as a substitution about to come on for Chile. So the man from Midtjylland over in Darío Osorio coming on. He'll be replacing Diego Valdés. That's another interesting thing to be looking at. So 3 minutes have been added on. And 3 minutes have been added on, as the referee indicates, of which we've already played 90 seconds in a first half that it's been mostly all Chile, that it's been a very interesting first half when it comes to what Chile's been able to do, but it hasn't translated into much of anything because, well, the opportunities have not come their way. So final minute, maybe there'll be a little bit more. Keep in mind, because when the 3 minutes were announced, basically those already seconds that have transpired into the 45. Trying to come back inside, but again is Edu Vargas, another man on the ground. It's Lichnowsky. As Wilton Sampaio, of course, there's a collision of heads. As now you see Zambrano and Lichnowsky. And what was 3 will end up being 4, maybe 5. So there's that. And the game, of course, it's had its moments where I don't know. There's been moments where where both teams have been able to show what they can show, but it's probably going to go to 50 now. But they've been so erratic. They've been so sloppy. And not only are you starting a tournament, but you're starting a tournament against a rival, a big rival, maybe the biggest rival. Although if you ask Chile, sometimes they'll say Argentina's their biggest rival. That's another story. And right there you see the connection of heads, as that's where things end up going and how things end up being in terms of the overall proceedings of this encounter. It's interesting to see the fans, despite it being scoreless, how they're trying to not really support the team, but kind of one up the opposition. And keep in mind that Chilean fans are being outnumbered, as Lichnowsky still very tender. Let's see what ends up happening here, because maybe you don't want to risk it and you don't want to lose a window, but you want to play with 10, but you can't gamble and possibly give Peru an opportunity to take a 1-0 lead. I'll give you the benches right now. Cáceres, I'm talking about Peru first. Cáceres, Romero, Sone, Santa Maria, Corso, Abraham, of course, man from Atlanta United for the United States. Brian Reina over at Belgrano. I'm not sure if Lichnowsky is going to be able to keep going. Cristian Cueva, who was added on late, and that will be the end of the first half. Carrillo, Castillo, Grimaldo, Rivera, and Paolo Guerrero. But Chile's bench, well, that's going to have to stay until the second half, because you know what? It's halftime here in Arlington, and it's scoreless after 45 minutes in a match that has left us kind of in terms of the overall play, that maybe things could have been a little bit better, that things could have probably been played a little bit better, and maybe, just maybe, Chile should be up 1-0, but then maybe, just maybe, Peru could have done a little bit more. We'll end up finding out how things end up playing out, but right now, that's it. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be back, and I'll offer you a little bit of analysis in terms of what's gone on in these first 45 minutes. All right, I'll be right back. Da-da-da-da-da. Hey, so guys, glad to be back. Uh, Scoreless after 45, and of course, I gave you some time to look at the stats and how things have gone in this first half. Maybe it's not ideal for Chile. That would be foolish to say that it was. But seeing how things are, it makes two things very important. For Chile, well, to be able to get a point knowing that they face Argentina next, well, it puts them in a precarious situation to say the least, because then they have to face Canada in the last round. But what ends up being also compelling is that Osorio was waiting there, of course. So the substitution was going to be made. And of course, this is me reading what's been going on. Of course, when you I get look, it's time it's I guess time for a football commentary lesson, okay? And I think I've said this a bit. Is Osorio, you see him right there. Osorio it was gonna come on, but that ends up wasting a window. Keep in mind that they wanted to be able to conserve it, so the substitution will be made. It doesn't count it'll count obviously as a substitution, but it won't count as a window that's being used. As you see right there, Diego Valdez was giving the technical staff and the medical staff kind of, look, give me a chance. Let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can end up getting better to go into this match. As of course, we wait for the beginning of the second half here in Arlington. With Valdez, you're going to see a team, or with Osorio, I think I should say, you're going to see a player that's a bit more, not much of a playmaker, if you will. And what I mean by playmaker is a number 10 as a player that ends up kind of holding the ball and trying to create for the others. No, Osorio's more bang, good forward, vertical. He's going to be that. Okay. So we'll wait and see how things kind of change with, of course, a player with one dynamic versus another. That ends up being important. And we'll end up seeing how that ends up kind of coming through. I did tell you guys about a little commentary tidbit lesson, right? Of course, a lot of these commentators that you listen to, a lot of them that are on television, well, they have someone on the side. They have actually two people on the side. Actually, there's a video that I put out of one of the commentators for Fox who actually had his stats guy right next to him. That guy's constantly giving him information, either writing it down or kind of saying it in his ear or saying it in his ear this way, either saying it in his ear this way or saying it in his ear this way. But many of them have that, and some even have a spotter. And I say it because there's some that do. There's some that have in a booth, you have the commentator, the co-commentator, you have the stats man, and of course you have the spotter kind of saying, hey, by the way, look over here. This is here. This, he's kind of spotting things for the comment. This only happens in the United States, of course. In other countries, no, you have the commentator and the co-commentator and then the producer, of course, in the event that something's needed. And of course, if something needs to be said and something needs to be communicated to them in a more direct manner. As Paolo Guerrero getting ready to come on. The all-time leading goal scorer. As of course, Peruvians from all over. And Peruvians, if there is a group of fans that do support and do travel to see Peru, it's them. As the ball's cleared away. Chile still being able to hold it in. Shot that ends up being knocked away and kind of blocked. And now Peru's starting to break with Lapadula. Ball has to get to him first as he ends up getting fouled. And in the process, a yellow card that's going to be issued. It ended up going to Gabriel Suazo. That's the second of the match for Chile, the third overall. Was it on Suazo or was it on Davila? No, on Davila. Orlando being on Davila, of course, the man from CSK Moscow. Of course, played over at León in Mexico. So correction there. That ends up being as the ball's going to be delivered in. It goes right out of bounds. So a bit of a slow start, at least for Peru, but of course they're trying to find a way. And with Fossati as the coach, keep in mind he was the coach of Uruguay at one point. So Lopez Cali, of course, now it goes to a back line of four with Quispe Cartagena and Peña, Flores and Lapadula up top. Ball being split. Cutting inside, but again, you have four Peruvian defenders going up against two players, and Wilton Sampaio finally has to stop proceedings as it goes and bumps him and hits him. It'll go right back to Chile, of course, or should go back. Keep in mind in Group A, Argentina with 3 points, but also a +2. Chile and Peru will end up, as of right now, will end up splitting the points. Obviously, things can change and most likely and probably end up changing. Callens, they both end up with 1. Canada, no points up to now. Of course, Canada will play against Chile in Kansas City next round. Canada will play against Peru in Kansas City, I should say. Argentina, as I mentioned before, will play Chile over in New Jersey. Balls unable to control it was Polo. And chopping down Suazo, it'll end up going back to Chile. They'll play at MetLife Stadium, same place where they played the final in 2016. That, of course, Chile ends up winning in penalties. And that was the same night that Leo Messi retired from the national team. And, of course, came back a few weeks later. So, again, thank you so much, all of you that have joined me. It's been great. I really appreciate it. Like I said before, spread the word. Make sure that people start knowing about it. It's something that it's slowly growing, and I know that it's going to take a long time to do so, but it's a process, and hopefully it continues going in the right direction. In the right direction, at least for Chile's going forward. Alexis Sanchez trying to find these. Let's continue just drifting forward, but it's a little bit too far for the former Flamengo man as it goes right to Pedro Galese. Fans still coming back to their seats after the intermission, but still not totally there, Peru. Totally not there, Chile. Suazo. Bit of a poor clearance, but finally being able to recover. Paulo Diaz. Lichnowsky was able to recover, and obviously we'll see what ends up happening in these next few minutes, as Diaz now kind of a little bit gimpy after the contact, but he'll try and play it out as quickly as possible, or at least he's waiting for the referee to give the indication. You hear the fans say, yeah, with the ball boy. So Lichnowsky alongside Paulo Diaz over to Isla, having a Send it back inside. Lots of room for Alexis Sanchez, but no one to work with. You end up getting maybe not the best of both worlds there, but one that ends up being proper, the other one that ends up making you think about, well, what should I actually be looking for? Ball sent in, Lapadula not being able to connect with it. Quispe was trying to make something of it and couldn't. Played by Davila. Played poorly by Davila. Now rushing and trying to jet forward. Happened to be Andy Pola, ended up being a goal kick, I should say. I thought it should have been a corner. It seemed like it did go off of Davila, but of course the assistant referee says otherwise. "53 minutes have gone by. As there'll be some substitutes already warming up. And now, interesting here. Again, laying it off. Good opportunity. Edu Vargas, the ball that ends up being clipped en route to goal. It ended up being a corner kick, or at least it should, as Davila took a crack at it and never really was able to do too much. Corner kick coming up. Paulo Diaz should be the man that's flying in to try and knock that ball into the back. Lichnowsky's not that bad. But Paulo Diaz, usually the player that can get the job done. Coming in, crashing in, but clearing it away with Skyllins. Osorio. Too far there. There was Marcelino Nunez that couldn't do too much with that. Again, thank you so much, guys. It's a pleasure, and thank you. Like I said, spread the word. Make sure that everyone around you knows and everybody around you starts to check things out with a bit more intent. And, of course, not only that, I had a video that just came up a little while ago that showed the behind the scenes of the Colombian national team when they're making their song. It was kind of interesting. So something I decided to share. The ball that's cleared away by Diaz, but there was a foul that was called on Edison Flores. You want to know how many fouls there are so far? Well, 21. I'll kind of spoil it for you. So if you put plus 30 in terms of fouls, you are well on your way for that to be a reality. Well on your way. And maybe even 40. I wouldn't be surprised. Claudio Bravo. Can Chile at times lose that spunk that they have, that desire that they have, that impetus that they have going forward? Alexis Sanchez, Marcelino Nunez, over to Edu Vargas, further out wide to Mauricio Isla. Of course, those three names, or at least three of those four names, end up being reminiscent of teams that won this Copa America. And after all the comments that were made by Arturo Vidal, saying, yeah, you know what, I'm not happy that I wasn't called up. I'm quite upset as a matter of fact. But I'm going to support the team from outside. Alexis Sanchez basically playing as a left back, trying to switch that ball, but almost impossible for Edu Vargas to get there, the man from Atlético Mineiro. "56 minutes have gone by, still scoreless here in Arlington. It's a pleasure to be with you. As it's Pedro Gareca playing it out, trying to send it as deep as possible. It's another ball that's surfacing in that sector and nobody being able to finally get to it. It finally lands right to Polo. Polo cutting back inside. Polo trying to deliver it. A ball that's brought back down a little bit too far for Lapadula. Just toe poking it forward. And Gianluca Lapadula. Maybe a great opportunity for Peru, but the way that Lapadula finished, and he couldn't do too much with it. Of course, he's right there just threw his left leg out there because that's all he could throw out there. And Claudio Bravo just pouncing it in. Lapadula cannot believe what he just missed, but again, give him credit for even putting it on target, because that ends up being something to kind of note as well. The first shot on target for Peru tonight. Marcos Lopez again with Polo. Polo quickly trying to play it on the near side. Peña. Again with Araujo. Peña. It's launched out by, well, you see again another ball that's kind of given away, and the dynamic of the game has kind of been deteriorating so far, but Davila trying to do something a little bit different, and it ends up not working. Trying to step, trying to touch, trying to play it out, but then again going out of bounds. It went out of bounds just before the Chilean player was able to knock it right back. Isla controlling it, giving it right away to Edison Flores. Edison Orejas not being able to recover. As the fans, well, you know, there's still some banter back and forth, but not much to really be able to notice. Ben Brereton getting ready to come on. At least you saw Brereton starting to run around. Bravo. Doing just enough Alexis Sanchez to recover. So far, one of the players of the match. Yes, he missed a big opportunity, but what he's been able to do so far in the midfield is of importance for Chile in terms of their movement. Of course, when Lichnowsky sends a ball out like that, it ends up making things a little bit more impossible for him. Back into the middle, play continues to see the ball come to. I mean, it just gets into the middle. That's basically it. There's no intent to try and do much. Now it goes over to Polo. Polo now with some room. Polo now with a bit of an angle. Polo having to deliver it back into the middle. It's a great chance for Edison Flores. Flores has a man out wide who's wailing and flailing his arms here and there and everywhere, but never gets in that sector. Going back to Polo. Polo's having to knock it back into the middle, trying to send it into the point and, well, trying to return it. Looking for Flores. Looking for Lapadula as he's able to keep that ball alive. But that ball goes out of bounds. So far, based on certain things, Peru been the better team in the second half so far. 15 minutes in. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it that they've been the better team up to now. Ball that's divided and finally won. And it's Marcos Lopez. Darío Osorio said with a shot that ends up going through. Marcos Lopez was coming in to cover, but Osorio was able to send that ball to Marcelino Núñez. Again recovered by Chile. There's very little to say about what has been going on in this second half because the lack of clarity that we've seen up to now. Brereton was getting ready. We'll see when he will come on. If he will come on at one point. I mean, if it starts taking too long, then you start questioning if he will. keeping that ball alive. The play was at least La Padula fighting for it, and Wilton Sampaio says, no, it ends up going back to Peru. As you see right there, the infraction courtesy of Paulo Diaz. And it's very, when you talk about what Peru's been able to do, especially now, and you want to get more specific, if you want to start seeing what Peru have been able to do when they send the ball from outside in, it's very little. Everything from the outside, Quispe sending the ball, and of course challenged and only challenged by Paulo Diaz, and full speed ahead now to Davila. Davila just getting a little bit ahead of himself and sends it out wide to no one as Advíncula. You see right there, Ben Brereton getting ready to come on. Ben Brereton Diaz changing a little bit of the attack. Marcos Volados, also the man from Colo Colo, about to enter the fray. They need to refresh up top. Edu Vargas isn't the answer tonight. Maybe Davila as well, because Davila's been imprecise, especially when he's received that ball. When he's receiving the ball, and more importantly, when he's sending the ball out. Alexis Sanchez. Good ball sent in. Oh, not being able to keep it in bounds. Ball already gone out. And as the years have passed on, we see how important Alexis Sanchez remains being for Chile. We'll see who, of course. So coming off, it'll be Davila. He'll be replaced by Volados. And Edu Vargas will be coming off. So that's the second substitution. Of course, the third will be Vargas coming on. And Ben Brereton Diaz also making his appearance. As that ball goes out of bounds, and of course, as the match progresses, guys, I mean, it's very tough to kind of give you any type of fluidity if the fluidity is not there. As another foul, of course, as we get closer and closer, 26 fouls now so far. Tomorrow, Group D begins with Ecuador and Venezuela. Of course, followed by Mexico and Jamaica. A match that's basically, that second match to me is a toss-up, if you ask me. Especially knowing how Mexico play, although Jamaica end up being a team that has so many uncertainties as well, that maybe the least uncertain or the least worst ends up being the one that kind of makes things happen a little bit better. We'll see. if, to me, based on how Ecuador and Venezuela are playing, I think Mexico ends up getting knocked out of the group. Here's Ben Brereton Diaz. Ball ends up being blocked. Good work. Again, Chile getting a bit more pace and a bit more purpose now down that right side, trying to keep it in and in the hands of Pedro Galese. And what Brereton Diaz is able to do is exactly that. Someone asked me yesterday in the Argentina game who could end up being a player that ends up getting good publicity or seeing their stocks rise in terms of the transfer market in the summer. Well, Ben Brereton Diaz could be that one of those players because he currently finds himself in a situation where Villarreal wants to get rid of him. He performed well. It's Paolo Guerrero about to come on. So, Paolo Guerrero about to come on. We'll see who he comes on for exactly. Because that will be an interesting proposition for Peru. Most likely for La Padula, or if not for Edison Flores. Those are the only two options I see. It was Ben Brereton that started to play over with Volados, but again, the ball that ends up coming in, Suazo was unable to get to. Paolo Guerrero making, of course, his potential final appearance. We'll see how that ends up playing out. 69 minutes, still no score. Also for Peru, another substitution, Joao Grimaldo. Another youngster that's starting to get into the swing of things with the national team, the 21-year-old from Sporting Cristal. We'll wait and see what ends up happening over in the next few minutes. 70 minutes have gone by, still no score. Very little that has been done so far by either side in this second half. I mean, very little has been done overall. Launching it, sending it deep, but of course, Chile being able to defend it properly. No one from Peru being able to even come remotely close to it. Alexis Sanchez bringing it back down. Dashing forward was Ben Brereton Diaz, but Alexis finally being able to win it again. Lots of room for Alexis to push forward. It goes over to Brereton Diaz. Was he offside? Play continuing inside. And in the continuation of it all, of course, putting his brakes on was Volados, and he sees that ball sail by. Again, you see the subs about to come on for Peru. So coming on is Paolo Guerrero. Coming off is Quispe, who's kind of seen his performance diminish. Listen, Edison Flores also coming off. So Quispe, actually the other way around, it's Quispe for Grimaldo. Here's another ball, and you see Guerrero finally coming on. Another ball that's sent in, but not much that's happening there as Claudio Bravo was able to secure it. Again, another ball. This time it's Volados driving down that left side, pushing off on Polo. But was there a foul called? Nope. So substitutions already been made for Peru. They get the ball back. It ends up being a foul, and it'll be Pedro Galese playing it out. Thank you so much, each and every one of you who have joined in. It's been great to have you all on this encounter. As that ball by Peru ends up being sent in, cleared away once more. This time it was Paulo Diaz on the receiving end of that ball. 28 fouls already have been committed. 28, 14 on each side. Peru now inside, but of course it gets past La Padula, who ends up committing the foul. It'll go against, all right, obviously it'll go the way of Chile, as it was Marcelino Nunez that ends up getting brought down. Again, it's so difficult because the two teams have lacked so much continuity in the overall scheme of things as we get into the final stage of this match, 74 minutes, and it's still a bit of a toss-up. Also, I want to know, folks, which matches you want me to do starting this weekend. Like I said, the only one I can't do is because of the time is US against Bolivia. I already have some commitments that I've already tended to, or that I have to tend to. Personal commitments that I have to tend to, so that makes it even more. Still anybody's game up to now. So, again, this is what makes this Clásico always such a... And many of those that are expecting a free-flowing football, it's not going to happen. I mean, it can happen, but more often than not, it doesn't in Copa America. Ball sails in, clearing it away. Once more is Paulo Diaz securing it finally. Simplifying things with Claudio Bravo. Ben Brereton Diaz bringing it down masterfully. Ben Brereton back out wide to Volados. Square ball can make it 1-0. Square ball ends up being defended even better. It ends up being a corner kick, as it'll be a great opportunity for Chile. But the ball that was sent to Ben Brereton Diaz, the way he brings it down and continues that shift towards the middle was amazing to see. And that's what ends up being such a difference maker for Chile up to now, and add him to the list of players that could end up being a threat so far in this encounter from a set piece. And delivering it in, cleared away by the Peruvian defense. Like I said, very staunch when it comes to defending, very staunch when it comes to being able to close angles and doing things of the like. So when you do break down Peru, it ends up being a very important task. Volados. Colombian Monday. No, man. You know what? I might do it. I might do it, Joe. But I gotta, you know what? I have to see what I can do. I need to get more fans in, man. I need to get more people in. I mean, I know it's going to happen, but it's just a matter of time. But for that game, it needs to be a bit more, because I know, and I feel bad for the fans because I know how the coverage is going to be, that one has to step in and be able to do something, to kind of do something different. We shall see. Why not? I'd love to. I have to find a way. Only if you include all of your bias. It's hard, man, because I have, I'll explain it in just a bit. I'm not the type that includes all my bias, because sometimes I'm maybe a little too realistic when I see certain things. I'm like, no, you know. But if that's what you want, that's what you can get. Yeah. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for everything. As we were waiting to see, of course, there was some shifting on the bench, but not much that could be seen of note that you could start saying, oh, you know what, there's going to be a substitution, but we shall see. Very little that Peru were able to do down that left side now that El Víncula is no longer there. Again, coming back and Peru resetting from their own back line. Polo waiting for that ball to get to him. It finally does. Polo knocking it forward, knocking it sideways. Again, a very direct play for Peru. Trying to see where it ends up playing out. Volados ends up getting in the way. Brereton staying out wide, just trying to make himself available, but again, not being able to play it out quickly and properly. La Padula. It'll continue being Peru ball. Polo. No, you have to. Oh, man. Maybe I should. I don't know. I'm not used to. I got a story. I can actually tell this on. I mean, it's the kind of thing that I can actually tell you on this. I did Copa America at Sportsmax in 2015. Okay. And of course, the match lends itself for me to go into storytelling mode. And I had to do a match with the vice consul of Chile. It'll be Peña. I'll tell you more in just a second. Ball that comes in right to Bravo. He gets in front. And he denies Peru not once but twice as he's still sprawled on the ground. The best opportunity for Peru of this match. Bravo coming up big, not one. And of course, Alexis Sanchez with a yellow card. Have I said how horrible a ref Wilton Sampaio is? Again, the ball that's hit by La Padula. Great reaction, and Paolo Guerrero there just getting there in time, but Claudio Bravo being able to put his body in front. Okay, so the match I end up having to do with the vice consul of Chile is Peru-Uruguay. I don't know if you remember that match. That's the Gonzalo Jara match where he kind of does that to Edinson Cavani. That? If you kind of get my drift. Well, okay, Chile ends up scoring. He starts running around the studio. I mean, we're in the studio in Kingston. He starts running around the studio screaming and yelling, and then goes and starts kissing and making out with his girlfriend in studio. So that happened. That's as close as it's gotten with me. So if that's what you want, well, not that part, but I mean, if you want the bias part, yeah, I can do that. I can do that if that's what you like. No, you for that game. Andy Polo. Peru got dangerous in these last 10 minutes. As we have 10 minutes left in this match. Dividing inside a man down for Peru on their own half of the pitch. It's Alexander Callens. Well, they're reporting about Luis Advíncula. It's some type of muscular issue that he's suffering right now. They'll get more studies in the next few days, and we'll see what ends. He ends up being basically questionable for the match against Canada. So Kylan's still on the ground. And the medical staff finally come on. So yeah, that was the issue that I had. I had the Jamaican the vice consul of Chile for Jamaica and he was screaming and yelling and cursing on air in Spanish, which was absolutely phenomenal, and had to deal with that while I was on air and trying to do a broadcast while he's screaming in my ear, and he's kissing his girlfriend, and of course, so as Callens still having a lot of problems trying to plant his right foot. Can he continue? The only player that I could see basically available would end up being Luis Abram. There's about 3 minutes that have been consumed in terms of this stoppage. So we'll see if it ends up being added. And you see a substitution coming on for Peru to make that. One of them is Oliver Sonne Anderson. You see him right there? What did I say? Anderson? No, Oliver Sonne Christensen. Of course, La Padula, now Christensen, is, of course, he plays for Silkeborg over and Luis Abram, as I mentioned before, man from Atlanta United, former Vélez Sarsfield man, getting ready to come on. So, Callens comes off. And Andy Polo also comes off. And Marcelino Núñez also comes off. So lots of substitutions going on there. As 84, 85 minutes. Basically, so almost 5 minutes were spent on subs and on the injury to Callens. Now it's Alexis Sanchez. Sanchez stepping through, chips it in. The idea was good, just that nobody was able to populate the area where he was sending that ball to. Same thing with Victor Davila, who comes off. Rodrigo Echeverria comes on for Chile. Another ball that comes in right behind La Padula. Of course, Echeverria playing over Huracan in Argentina, making his 12th cap. Ben Brereton Diaz recovering that ball. Lots of space. Look how much space. And if a team that counters well ends up taking advantage of this, it could be a very long night. Ben Brereton Diaz with a ball that ends up sailing over and wide of the target. Of course, the best opportunity of the second half, if you ask me, that one right there. That one right there ends up being the difference maker up to now. Difference maker in terms of who's played better in the second half. So Callens as well as Advíncula get injured. That maybe, I don't know if it's great news for Canada, but well, that's two players that Jorge Fossati might not be able to count on. Paulo Diaz, Ben Brereton Diaz. Ball sent in by Alexis Sanchez Volados, but also coming in and filling in the spaces. Ball sent by Volados. Alexis! Ben Brereton was running in, but the ball ends up being deflected right before it gets to him. Now Peru looking to answer back as quickly as possible. Here's a very interesting and peculiar situation, but a good cutoff as it goes and slipping and sliding all over the place. Finally, it's sent over by Christensen as he's not able to finally fine-tune a good pass ball that could really create some problems for Chile. So all of a sudden, what do? You settle things down, you drop off, and you end up reorganizing yourself defensively. Suazo. Alexis Sanchez having to turn back into the middle. Lichnowsky. Isla back out wide. And again, all sorts of issues for Chile. Rodrigo Echeverria populating over on the right-hand side. Alexis Sanchez being able to shift ever so slightly on this sector because, of course, wanting and needing to associate more with Ben Brereton Diaz. Echeverria laying it off, and another ball to Osorio that he's not able to control. Now finally Peru dropping back and finding ways to maybe resituate themselves, but also recalculating how the entire spectrum of things were ahead of them. Well, it doesn't work out too well. So with all of that, well, it ends up being a match where both teams have kind of evened themselves out. Both teams have neutralized themselves. Both teams have been unable to truly break the other down. And it's evident in the scoreline. So the matches against Canada will end up being so vital. And of course, if either one of these teams ends up getting a result against Argentina, it's a bonus. It's a huge bonus. Out wide, Osorio going up against Abraham Ben Brereton Diaz. Wilton Sampaio stays quiet. There was no foul. It did go out of bounds. And it'll end up being a corner favoring La Roja. Wilton Sampaio saying, okay. He stayed mum on that one. There was no foul. Again, sailing in and clearing it out. It'll go right back to Peru. 77 minutes. Again, the temperatures here. Ooh, wait. Is Zambrano saying he wants to, because keep in mind, he was already on the ground once. Yeah, Zambrano did enough on that one. Of course, he felt the rigors of it later on. Now, intercepted. Good job by Alexis. To me, Alexis Sanchez, man of the match. And why do you end up, I'm not exactly sure why the director, again, how some people end up directing and doing games is beyond me. Chile just stolen the ball. They go into counterattack and they end up going into a highlight. Another ball, it's finally won. To me, Alexis Sanchez, definitely man of the match. Alexis. His 5 minutes will be added on. Alexis Sanchez. So, looks like both teams will share the points unless something drastic happens in the next few minutes. Alexis. Isla. Ben Brereton against Sonny Christensen. A lot of room to roam, but again, Chile not being able to bring it back down and play it cleanly. Diaz. But if there's something to kind of hold your hat on or kind of say, you know what, they did a great job, or at least they played, or they show something better, it's Chile that at least went forward with a bit more conviction. Alexis, Ben Brereton Diaz inside of the area, seeing if he can get to that ball first, but ends up floating behind him. Alexis, and of course, time of the essence, and of course, that ball going also out of bounds, and that ends up being a missed opportunity for La Roja. Fossati. There's just a lot of intensity that's been shown by both sides, and that's maybe not for Copa America. Something you can say, oh, something that you can kind of note during the entire tournament, because if you end up getting knocked down in the first round, well, it's little to nothing that you end up kind of, how should I say, that they end up, you can end up holding that as a positive. Oh, they were intense. They showed energy. No, it ends up being something that does not really convince in the grand scheme of things. But when you start heading into the month of September and October, World Cup qualifying, that ends up offering you points, because that is, as time goes by, you work with it, you work on it to help things improve. And that could be where the difference is made in the long run. Because is winning Copa America an objective for Chile? If they win it, that'd be great. But their objective is to return to a World Cup. I mean, they haven't been to a World Cup since 2014, despite all the success that they've had. So for them, that's more vital, as we'll probably end up going and we'll go into 96. And what has been there's certain areas that you see right there. I was about to say that the stadium, that fans are jumping, and there's fans that are just looking at their phones, which is one of the criticisms that I heard from many journalists in Argentina, saying, well, many of these fans aren't fans. They're just people that are kind of like casuals. No sin in being a casual. Now, let's be honest. But you can't be a casual and want to be treated like a diehard. Throw in coming in with Isla. Ball is just kind of trickled in. Chile now trying to press Peru into their own quarter of the pitch, as that finally ends up going right back to the bicolor, as a foul is being called. Volados thought he got all ball and he didn't. So final seconds of this encounter. For Peru, a point that they will be very happy getting. For Chile, a point they'll be very happy in obtaining. But for them, it ends up being something also that needs to be talked about in terms of their overall functionality, because many are looking at these two as the possible teams that can end up advancing out of the group stage, and seeing Canada perform, well, maybe it's a three-way tie. I don't know yet. One of the last opportunities of the match. I don't think so. I think there'll probably be a little bit more time that will be played, but we shall see. Service coming in. It'll be delivered, and very poor ball, easily gathered by Galese. Wanted to play it quickly, but the referee says that that's it. There is no more. That's the end of the match. Scoreless after 90 minutes here in Arlington, Texas. Folks, it's been great. Thank you so much. As these two teams, it had its moments, but for the most part, there's still a lot to work on. But Chile and Peru and Chile, scoreless after 90 over at AT&T Stadium. Folks, it's been good. I'll talk to you very soon. Until next time, ciao.